Racing League F1 Championship from Sepang in G-Hall at G-Hall_89, and unfortunately Jake cannot be in the box. No Assist League, which was wrapped up in emphatic style with Game of the Best picking up the No Assist Championship, coming in to pick up another second position, which meant that he never finished off. Title decider to be decided once again tonight. But tonight it is Game of the Best who will be doing the chasing. He's got 9 points to make up against Sam in first place, and Sam currently leading, picking up his first race victory of the season last week out in the USA in the Circuit of the Americas. And it's actually with his first race victory of the season, he's managed to finish on the podium pretty much every race he's been in so far, apart from Silverstone, where he finished on 4th. So he was definitely looking at getting that final or that first race victory under his belt. And with Game of the Best crashing out, it's really given Sam an opportunity of taking the title here tonight in Sepang. But just go through the things. It's Sepang, Malaysia, located in Kuala Lumpur. First raced in 1999. Today will actually be the final time that we race around this Sepang circuit, as it leaves the F1 calendar at the end of the season. Unfortunately, another one of the Herman Tilke circuits, with quite true to his name, of quite tricky, twisty, turny, with elevation changes, especially at turn 9, which can be very easy for the guys to kick the rear end of the car out and unbalance the car. So the guys tonight have got to make sure they've got their cars really set up, ready to work to their advantage as we go through the session. It's a 5.5 kilometer circuit. That's 3.34 miles, the 8th longest circuit on the calendar, with the longest straight and the cars hitting the top speed along that straight. As the longest straight is actually down on the entry to the final corner at turn 15, where it's just over 0.5 of a mile, so it's 920 meters, and the cars will be hitting 330 kilometers an hour. That's hitting the rev limiter around 205 miles an hour on the approach to turn 15. And it's a full throttle lap of around 65%, with the guys on full throttle for around 12 seconds. Well, the longest period of full throttle is the 12 seconds on that entry to turn 15 from the turn 14 that seems to never end. And it's a very tricky circuit to kind of make sure you sort out your braking points on. And equally, we see different strategies from different drivers quite regularly. We see the one-stop strategy with guys going from the super softs to the mediums. That worked last night quite well for the top two. But we saw Mystic Man 22 pick up third position with a two-stop strategy, where he put on the super softs twice and then ran on the softs into the end. So definitely different strategies on with an option tonight for the guys to have a go. Per lap, that's 1,596, over a 50% lap, give or take a few depending on where their braking points are. As we go, and we'll look back over the last race, obviously I have not managed. Obviously Jake has been superb in the box for the F1 guys this season, and we wish him the best and hope that he can come back bigger, better and stronger for the F1 2018 game and take more of a full-time role within the league. But he did commentate last week on USA, where Sam took the win, his first of the season, as I've said before, and Gamer crashing out after winning the last 5 out of 6 races he's participated in. So Gamer was well on form to take the championship, as we're on board with James Braden 99 as the rain starts to fall in Malaysia. It's known for being quite a temperamental circuit, and we can see wet weather sweeping through off of the hillsides on either side, and it's very regular to see spots of rain just appear on the radar. And the guys today are out there on those dry tyres, but just possibly damper conditions, so they're going to want to get out there and set these laps as soon as possible, really. Foxy Red 2000 took a second position at the end of the race, which was good to see Foxy back on the podium after rejoining the league. So he finished with got himself 10 nice points there, with Real Hiroshi unfortunately can't be here tonight, picked up his second consecutive third position. So that means Sam leads the title with one race to go tonight by 9 points, which is in reverse to what happened last night with Gamer leading the title to Joel V520. So Sam essentially will win the title if he picks up 4 points. So as he currently goes top with 134.3. So Sam on top as Axiri picks up a 135.3. So work to do there as James Braden goes on second with 134.5. So good benchmark there for Sam in the Mercedes as he puts it on provisional pole, and we can see other guys throughout the league. As you can see the F1 league, some of the fastest guys that we have here in F1 is Lipinski just kicks the rear end of that Haas out as he goes around. He's gonna touch the outside. It's starting to get wet, and you can see the guys starting to feel the effects of that. The damp conditions on these dry tyres, and what he didn't want to do there is get out onto that AstroTurf, and it's just going to be like running on ice in these conditions. It's just going to have that little layer of water on top of it, and unfortunately for the Penske, you can see the spray starting to appear from the rear end of the tyres. So I believe as the rain starts to come down, yes, you can really see Lipinski struggling to get the grip down in that hassle, and it essentially looks like it might be turning over to intermediate conditions quite soon. So Lipinski just struggling to get the power down. And it may be a case that pole position has already been sewn up with Sam and James currently locking out the front row as Lipinski does come in at the end of this lap, and we'll see as DRS is disabled. So yes, the stewards have decided the times will be significantly low enough so there is now intermediate. So have the rest of the grid got caught out on the fact that they didn't set that early lap? And look at that, it's Game of the Best still in the pit lane, has not set a time. So with Sam now on provisional pole, he has definitely got the advantage going into the races. I can pretty much guarantee that will be currently that will be your top three. I don't think we're going to see as the Force India of Nikki 9095 drifting around turn 14. As I don't believe we'll see anyone going any quicker. You can see just how slick the track has got in such a short amount of time. Just 3 minutes into the session, and we're down heavier. And unfortunately, we're now moving over to intermediates, and it will be interesting to see if the guys do stay out. Or stay in the pit lane and just look to consolidate or essentially start, as we've only got 9 guys in tonight, that the attack down to turn 1 won't be too crowded. So, or do we see guys go out there on the intermediates, as we've got a Red Bull leaving the garage there, and Mr. X also leaving the garage on the intermediate tyres. Yeah, so it's intermediates for Mr. X and intermediates for Foxy. So both of them out there to try and set some times, and everyone in the pit lane at the moment will be kicking themselves that they didn't get out there and set that early lap time. It's a medium downforce circuit here, quite a stiff suspension required. Track surface around here is very smooth. It's relayed quite often because it's used for various different formula, especially the Formula Asia series. But with quite a grippy surface in the dry, it does, when it rains, become very slick and very slippery. So the guys need to really, really make sure they're feathering that throttle pedal, not putting too much onto the rear tyres, and because they will just take the life of it very, very, very quickly. As you can see just how tricky that section of corners is going to be for Foxy as he goes around it, and down to the very tricky turn 9 where you've got to brake, hit the apex, and it's that elevation change can really unbalance the car. You don't want to get on the power too early. Foxy nicely doing it there, doesn't run out too wide, doesn't want to touch the curbing on the outside because it will just put the car off balance. Unfortunately, in the wet, these curbs are lethal and they will just turn the car around. So the only way for Gamer to take the victory tonight would be, or to take the championship, I should say, off of Sam, is that if Sam finishes 8th or lower and Gamer wins. And And if Gamer wins and Sam does come 8th, it would mean they would be equal on points, and Gamer would take the title on countback, having won a lot more races throughout the season than Sam. So just showing just how absolutely crucial that DNF for Gamer was in the USA last week out, and an entire season potentially he could have been a double series champion in no assists this season after picking up the no assist title last night. Could have very easily, as we've got a yellow in sector 3 that's gone very briefly, as couldn't quite see who that was. Gamer the best going very slowly over the start finish line there, about to start his lap on the intermediate tyres in the Ferrari. That orange helmet contrasting to the Scuderia Ferrari. As you get it slowed down, you can see just how tentative he is around. This game really struggling to get the power down. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how of the guys from 4th to 9th, who's got the best pace in the wet conditions. And equally, does this mean that we will have a wet race? It doesn't look like we've got the radar in at the moment, so it's going to be very interesting to see if the rainy conditions transfer over to the race itself. So going down through the Drivers' Championship at the moment, I'd just to make you all aware for the drivers in the lobby at the moment, you've got Sam on top with 79 points. Like I said, yet to miss a race, and has only finished off the podium once, and that, like I said, was in Silverstone, where he finished 4th. Game of the Best sitting 9 points on 70 points behind him, after not starting in Mexico and Italy, showing just how pacey he's been, but with wins in Brazil, Silverstone, Singapore, Hungary and Bahrain, Gamer really put himself back into the conversation when it came to the championship victory. As Gamer comes around the final corner, about to set his lap, you can see just how much slower the times are, and Gamer crosses the line and he moves up into 4th position, so softening the blow ever so slightly there. Potentially it will be starting on the 2nd row of the grid, sitting behind Axiri, as Lipensky is in 7th at the moment, or 147.7, with only Nicky 9995 and Scott, that's boy better know, SB in the Renault, as he comes down the final turn, final straight down into the last turn at turn 15. Gets the Renault just about slowed down. He's going to go a little bit deep, and he does just run a little bit deep inside the corner, but straightens it up, put the pedal back down, and Scott crosses the line and puts it up onto the 3rd row of the grid, currently in 6th position, as Nicky does the slowest time, 149.5. So Nicky, unfortunately, with that being that, pretty much, unless he wants to try and set one more lap, I think he may have just crossed the line in time there, but potentially these guys from 4th down to 9th did, as Mr. X crosses the line, doesn't improve, so he stays 5th with 145.2. But these guys potentially looking at doing one more lap if they have filled up the cars to allow them to do so, as Foxy crosses the line 146.2 there, no improvement, so he stays 7th at the moment. So we will have Sam on pole with James alongside him in 2nd. James currently sitting in 7th in the table with 31 points after picking up 2 podiums so far this season, one back in Silverstone and a 3rd in Silverstone and a 2nd in Hungary, so a couple of good results for James. He's definitely got the with Hiroshi not racing tonight, he's definitely got the opportunity of moving up a position into 6th for the end of the season, and with the guys ahead not racing, it's potentially going to be an effective 4th in the championship. As you can see, Scott looking like he was going for another lap there on the intermediates. The Force India just about got out of the way, but we will look to see if he actually sticks with it. No, it looks like he's bailed out of that, so he's pulled out of that lap, so that looks to be as if that will be our grid for the race. With 1 minute 30 left on the timer, counting down before we get to the changeover, and I will count out the final results as Scott weaves side to side. Possibly a little bit frustrated with the fact that he didn't get out there and set that time earlier in the session. So Scott currently in 12th position in the title with 14 points. He's not translated his pace that he's shown in the no assist league into F1 currently, only picking up a 2 sixths and a 7th in the season so far, and a couple of non-starters in between that after he moved into the F1 league. So not quite showing the pace, as you have got the final results there. So Sam on pole 134.3 in the dries, James Braden 99 on second with 134 flat 5 flat, Axeri in third, Gamer in fourth, Mr. X in fifth, Scott in sixth, Foxy in seventh, Lipensky in eighth, and Nicky in ninth, as the final five all had to start. Final six, sorry, all had to do their laps on the intermediate tyres. So from pretty on in that session, we were guaranteed to have the top three as they were on the first three positions in the grid, and that was Sam, Axeri, and James Braden, getting out there and setting that time early on. So really important for Gamer actually if he's going to take the fight to Sam for this race, as we look like we've got a dry race at the moment, looking a little bit overcast, so potential that we might see a little bit of rain. It's going to be very interesting. You can't quite see a break in the clouds, so we will see if it's just going to stay overcast, or do we get some rain sweeping in later into the session, which would definitely spice up the race. And the guys just working on their race strategy at the moment with their race engineers, sitting there going through all the different scenarios that would happen. What happens as James already signals that he's ready to go, equally so does Mr. X. So we have got a 20-second timer counting down to the final race of the F1 League in IRL for this season, and indeed for the 2017 game. And let's go out with a bang. And the lights are on. We have 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and we are go in Malaysia. The cars all leave the grid pretty evenly. We don't have anyone being left behind. No jump starts, and it's good to see as the Red Bull tucks in behind Sam going into the first corner, pulls out, tries to get rub, but Sam looks like he's locked in first position. Now, does James look for a dive down the inside? He doesn't quite get it done as Gamer's dropped down to fifth. He's battling with Scott. Gamer back up to third, so imperative for Gamer to make sure that he maintain that position there as Sam leads the grid away. Back down as Axeri gets back past Gamer, and Axeri really battling, and you can see we've got 3-4 wide going into turn 4 there as Mr. X currently up into third position. Gamer down in fourth at the moment. He needs to make up those positions early in this race, and behind him Scott and Axeri battling. Axeri really dropping down, having a little bit of a poor start there, falling back after getting swarmed into turn 1. And it's Scott at the moment that's all over the back Game of the Best as he go into turn 9 up the hill. So you're currently grid at the moment: Sam, James, Mr. X, Gamer, Scott, Axeri, Foxy, Nicky 995, and Lipensky back down in 9th position, as Scott still looking at the rear end of that Ferrari going into the third sector, as he looks for a little bit of a lunge down the inside just to let Gamer know that he's there, and he just wants to tuck himself into the rear end of that Ferrari as they go up the main straight. Of course, the guy's running on equal performance, so no benefit for Gamer being in the Ferrari, as we've got the two up ahead, and we've got just trying to find it there, the battle for the lead, and it's Sam who's coming under attack from the Red Bull going down into turn 1, but James doesn't quite get the move done, and Sam and James really battling, or just you can see the battle for the first and second, third and fourth raging going into the first corner of the second lap, and Sam maintaining first position currently, but James on an absolute mission to get the move done, looking a little bit more confident under braking at the moment. Sam potentially knowing that all he needs is 4 points to take the title. meaning that he can just potentially just drive a little bit more carefully, not have to worry about pushing too hard and taking too much life out of those tyres. But even still, he wants to make sure that he finishes off the season in good form, readying himself for next season, and he won't want to let James pass too easy. But with James also looking for his first victory in IRL, he's not going to give up. He doesn't care about the fact that Sam and Gamer are still fighting over the title. Equally, he's just going to want to get this move done. He wants a win for himself and the Red Bull team, as it looks like he's gone wide and spun. He has. That's really unfortunate for James. They just touched the curb on the outside of turn 14, and really unfortunately for James, he just turned the car around. But what that does mean is it's promoted Gamer up into second position at the moment, who's made it up past Mr. X, as Scott looks to have picked up some front wing damage there. We saw a little bit of lag with Mr. X just bouncing from side to side. Be interested to see on Scott's on board there is rear end of the grid. James already looking to get the move down on the sister Red Bull down into turn 1, as the two battle going into turn 1. Turn 2, James getting the move done, moving up into 7th position and back on the charge, and he's going to look at trying to catch up to this group. Not too far ahead at the moment, with Game of the Best currently keeping Mr. X, Scott and Axiri at bay. As you can see, the end plate, or the front right end plate of that Renault missing ever so slightly, as Scott looked to have picked up a little bit of wing damage, potentially off. Axiri running deep into that corner, just got a little bit unsighted by the Renault, braking a little bit too early into the corner, and Axiri losing a lot of time there. As Scott still looking at the rear end of the McLaren. You saw carbon fibre flying. I think it was from the Renault driver. Will go on board and just have a look. Yeah, you can see the fact that he's missing that front right hand end plate on the front wing of that Renault, so that's really going to disrupt the airflow in especially in the dry conditions. It's really going to disrupt him into these corners, and downforce around here is crucial. And unfortunately for Scott, I believe this is the second night in a row that he's got early front wing damage and just ran a little bit deep, and Mr. X potentially just lagged out a little bit, as Gamer sets the fastest lap of the race with 1:35.3 on the soft compound tyres. And I will just check the tyre compounds, and it's very interesting to see there. You can see Sam starts on those super softs that he qualified on, but Gamer, having the option to start on whatever dry tyres he wanted, starts on the soft compounder tyre. So Gamer back on the soft compound tyre, which will give him a little bit more longevity in the stint compared to Sam's. So Sam's tyres definitely going to go off a lot sooner than Gamer's, and we'll look to see, does he get caught? As Scott getting a little bit wide there. He doesn't want to run too deep once again. So we've got a yellow in sector 2, and it's Axiri who's pointing in the wrong direction, so having to turn that Toro Rosso around, and he does. So looking like he lost it on potentially on the exit of, was that turn 7, or maybe even before that, possibly even turn 5, turn 4 and turn 5. And Lipinski back down behind him, now 0.4 of a second behind on the medium tyre. So Lipinski looking at going long with the medium stint to start with, and then finishing up later in the race on the super soft tyres. We'll go back up, check on with Scott, who is currently still looking in the rear end of Mr. X's McLaren at the moment. As Game of the Best still sitting, as Sam now sets the fastest lap of the race. So saw that Gamer was starting to close him down for the lead of the race, and just put a little bit more gas into it. Maybe that lap the team gave him a little bit of a hurry up. As you can see, that we are having a little bit of a lag issue with Mr. X in the race. He just is a little moving cross screen. That might unnerve Scott ever so slightly when it comes to making the overtake, but he is getting a lot closer. Does he look at making a move into the right-hander? No, he doesn't. He stays behind the McLaren. He's gonna have to sit here for quite a while, because there's no particular overtaking opportunities until they get down to turn number 9, where he could lunge it down the inside. But getting a little bit out of shape there as he comes in, takes turn 7 and 8 much nicer, so it's a run down to turn 9. He's just not quite close enough to get the move done. And behind him it's Nicky 9095, who's not too far behind at the moment. So Nicky's starting to close into the rear end of these guys battling over third position, and Nicky equally looking at picking up a podium in the last race of the season. The lead at the top still sitting at around a second and a half, so Gamer not making any inroads on Sam at the moment, potentially just looking after those tyres, not wanting to push them too hard too early into the stint. And Sam, or as we see there, Sam sets another fastest up with 1:35.2. Scott took a tighter line going into turn 15, but Mr. X still managing to maintain third position at the moment. Nicky sitting there just watching this happen, is just having a look, and you can see rain starting to fall. So as I said before, potentially looking at rain moving in. You can see rain appearing on the lens, so this will really make this race a lot more interesting. Now, especially on the behalf of Sam, we know that the super soft compounded tyres, they do not enjoy this sort of colder circuit that's especially getting a little bit more damp, as Nicky lunges down the inside of Scott, and Scott just ever so slightly got his braking point wrong in the previous corner, and it just meant that he was a little bit slower for turn 5 and turn 6, and Nicky makes the move done, gets the saw the opportunity and just sent it down the inside, and puts the Force India up into 4th place, and Nicky with a really good opportunistic move then. Scott already starting to struggle with the conditions. He's starting to feel the effects of the rain coming down onto those soft compounded tyres, but as I was saying before, Sam, the super soft tyres don't like working in the sort of colder wet conditions at all, so it'll be very interesting to see how we can combat the change in the tyre, whereas Nicky on a charge really has already cruised up to the rear end of Mr. X and has got a much better exit out of the final turn. DRS is enabled still, we haven't seen it turned off just yet. He's pulled out early, looking to get the move done. He looks to the inside. Mr. X, oh, that was interesting to see there. Cars didn't touch on circuit, but Mr. X looked like he drifted out wide there. So possible internet issues for Mr. X, which is disappointing to see tonight, as Scott drops down, and he is the first one to make the move over to the intermediates, fitting that new front wing that we saw that he'd probably had to take, and especially in wet conditions it would be crucial for him to have as much downforce, as much grip as possible. But Scott is going to be the first one to test out the green walled intermediates on the circuit at the moment. It doesn't quite look like the crossovers come. We can't see any spray coming off of the tyres, and we'll go back up to the top as I can see Gamer is now within a second of Sam, who will be struggling on those super soft tyres. He's done qualifying on them, and he's also done 7 laps, and we know the supers just don't tend to last too long around here, and Gamer will he'll see Sam starting to struggle, and this will give him a really huge amount of boost of confidence when it comes to attacking the Mercedes driver going into the corner. We'll see, does Sam stay out and try and brave it out for another lap on these super softs, or does he bail in? No, he stays out, but you saw Gamer almost drifting around turn 15 there, so both drivers struggling on the tyres at the moment as Gamer drops back to 9/10 of a second. But the rain's starting to come down heavier, and I can't see it lasting too much longer on the dry compounded tyres, as Scott still at the back. Look to see he's losing a little bit of time to James Braden in 8th position at the moment, so maybe a little bit too early for Scott, which would be disappointing because he was right in the box seat for taking a podium position tonight. Sorry. Game of the best now half a second behind Sam, and Sam not getting a very good exit at all out of going down into turn 9 against the Mercedes driver. Does he switch back and go to the inside? No, he sits behind him. He doesn't want to lunge. He knows that he needs to win this race, and he needs Sam to have a mishap as Game just about keeps that Ferrari in a straight line, and we can see just on board just how much work that Game was having to put into that steering wheel to keep it in a straight line for the Ferrari. And he's outbraked himself ever so slightly. Be able to get a good run out of turn 14 there. He's going to be in the slipstream of the Mercedes in front, but up into rich mixture with DRS. Does he make a move into the final corner? It's going to have to be a lunge. No, he pulls out of it. He's going to sit here for a second. Both cars still staying out there, but if this is going to be the time to make the move done, this is where they need to get it done. Gamer needs to get past Sam. He doesn't want to be sitting behind, because Sam will just be holding him up at the moment with the fact that he's out there on the less favourable compound of tyres. And you can see just how much slower the guys are starting to go through turn 1 and turn 2 now. And just this corner at turn 3, it's like turn 13 and 14. It seems to go on forever, and it's very easy. Sam goes deep into turn 4, and unfortunately for him, that looks like he's going to have given up the lead of the race. But Gamer didn't quite get the best exit out of it at all. So with all of that, Gamer very tentatively, he doesn't want to get involved in any accidents. He saw that Gamer would be coming back on circuit and potentially not with the best grip, and he didn't put the hammer down and get past him. And you would expect Gamer, we've seen him in the past, to really just be quite aggressive when it comes to making overtakes done, but looking after himself at the moment, he just desperately doesn't want to get caught in anything else. As you can see that it's definitely looking towards intermediates at the moment now. The guy's just no rear end grip. You can just see how much they're sliding around as Sam struggling to get it around as Gamer takes the inside line, and you can see once again he pulls out of the move. So he could have potentially just put it down there and just lit up those rear tyres and tried to get past, but he's going to stick behind Sam, and I would potentially see both of them coming in this lap, as they do both, as Sam goes for an excursion across the grass, and that unsights Gamer, and Gamer kind of got out, unnerved himself a little bit, and equally comes in as they both get it slowed down for the pit lane. They do. So I think we're going to see the entirety of the top 5, possibly, or maybe, yeah, definitely the top 6 coming in for the intermediate tyres now. Gamer the best out as Sam leaves the grid. Gamer with maybe lost a little bit of time in the pit stops. Sam looks to have gained a fraction of a second ahead of him, as Nicky out in 3rd position at the moment, as we do have everyone out on circuit on the dry tyres coming in for wets, as James is the last one to come in. So Scott potentially he'll kick himself that he didn't come in maybe one lap later. He just hasn't been able to make the most of these intermediate tyres. It just wasn't quite wet enough. He couldn't quite get the grip down, but he's going to get the move done on James, and potentially Lipinski going down the main straight. So Scott will jump back up into, it's going to be close on him. Lipinski going into turn 1, as Lipinski just about maintains 6th position. But Scott here on those intermediate tyres will have them warmed up a little bit better. They'll have a little bit more grip over this first half of the lap. You can see Lipinski not quite used to the grip level or those intermediates, as Scott is going to have to lunge down the inside here, and he doesn't. That would be an absolutely excellent move from the Renault driver if he gets it done. And looking to the side here, you can see Lipinski in the Haas. He's going to have to concede the position, and Scott there, he realised that he'd already committed to that line. He was going to outbrake himself, and it was either a case of rear end the Haas behind and pit for another front wing, or get that move done. And the Renault driver absolutely superbly went, you know what, I'm just going to send it, and he did, and gets 6th position. As we go back up, and we'll just check in with the guys at the top, and it's Gamer the best, who's now 2.8 seconds. So you see just how much time he's lost on those intermediates in the pit stop. And unfortunately for Gamer, it's just he wanted to get the move done. You could see just how he was just very, very nervously like looking around when it came to getting the move done around Sam, and it may come back to haunt him. We know that with Sam currently winning the race, it doesn't matter where Gamer finishes, but you've got to bank on the fact that he might make a mistake and just get the move done, and hope that Sam potentially push too hard and spin like we saw James Braden do earlier in the race. But unfortunately for Gamer, he just didn't quite get the move done, didn't quite have the nerve just to send up the inside or anywhere, or even on the times where Sam ran wide, Gamer just was a little bit too tentative on the throttle, and potentially has cost himself the opportunity at a win tonight, unless he can show off some decent pace on the intermediate compound. As you can see, Lipinski drifting around turn 3 there. And so Sam still leading by 2.2 seconds at the moment, with Game of the Best in second. Nicky 9095 up in third position. I'll just flick through at the moment. You can see the gaps back from the leader. So Nicky back 6 seconds from Sam. Mr. X 10 seconds back. And then a big gap back to Foxy, 29 seconds, with Scott 34. Lipinski 37 and James Braden 42, and Xeri after that spin in the Toro Rosso. Unfortunately, after a good qualifying session, or a positive qualifying session for him, Xeri finds himself in 9th position at the moment, with everyone still picking up points, of course, at the moment. So definitely not the end of the world, as James Braden, the only one to have made 2 stops so far. And you can see the how impressive that is for Nicky 9095 there. Starting in 9th position, has made up 6 positions up into 3rd. So Nicky jumping up 6 positions. Gamer's jumped up from 4th into 2nd. Mr. X is up from 5th to 4th. Foxy is up from 7th into 5th. Scott has maintained position. Lipinski's up in position. Unfortunately, James Braden and Xeri, the 2 that have lost out the most, having dropped down from 3rd and 4th down to 8th and 9th. So James and Xeri not having the best of races here in Sepang. And it's the closest battle we have on circuit at the moment is between Gamer and Sam, which is sitting at once again around 1.8 seconds, and the guys starting to get in the groove on these intermediate tyres, not sliding around as much, and the rain not looking like it's coming down any heavier. So at the moment, there's no chance of it moving to full wet conditions, as we quite regularly see in Sepang. As I was saying earlier on, that when the rain comes, it tends to really come. And if anything, the rain looking like it's easing off ever so slightly down the back straight, not quite as heavy as it was a few laps ago. Will be interesting to see if that was just a passing shower, and if we go back to dries later in the race, or if this is just going to be current drizzle throughout the rest of the race, where it just keeps the guys on the edge of the intermediate to dry condition. Gamer now 1.5 seconds back from Sam, so starting to turn the screw ever so slightly, and just keeping Sam on his toes and making sure that what he wants to do is he wants to get back in within that 1 second window, just where Sam can sense him behind, and potentially just looking in his rear wing just a fraction of a second too long and just missing a braking point, running wide. That's Gamer will still, to be fair, will still pick up as he's done in this no assist league. Game of the Best has yet to finish off of the top 2 steps of the podium at all this season in both the no assist and the F1 league. So Game of the Best really showing just how quick he is, and just the consistency that he's shown throughout the races that he's been involved in has been phenomenal. And the fact that he's yet to finish lower than second out of a number of races in the F1 league and an entire season in the no assist just shows the pace that this young man has got. and with currently 1.5 seconds behind Sam, you definitely cannot rule him out for a late attack on the Mercedes going into the race. Now down to 1.2 seconds as James Braden swaps positions with Lipinski down. I'm sorry I've missed that one there, as James Braden gets the move done on Lipinski down and takes 7th position. So after that spin, James starting to get some positions back up, moves back up into 7th, and it's a big gap between him and Scott currently. Scott currently sitting 3.2 seconds behind Foxy in front of him, so the Renault looking to possibly just push a little bit harder come the end of the race, and whilst the guys at the moment will be looking after those intermediate tyres, knowing that they're going to have to try and stay on them as long as possible. They don't want to have to come in for another stop if they have to, and it's all about not spinning up those rear tyres and not locking up too much to where you take too much life out of them. And we know just how devastating it can be if you spin or touch the grass here and get dirt and all sorts of pick up onto those tyres. It just turns them into sheet ice, and unfortunately for James Braden, as we saw earlier, and it's once you go off, it's kind of the point of no return, and you really struggle to find yourself pointing in the wrong direction, as Axiri also found himself pointing in the wrong direction in the Toro Rosso's. Gamer now starting to hound the back of Sam, starting to just test out what Sam's defensive prowess is going to be in the Mercedes, as he sits just over a second behind and he's starting to close it in. You can see the Ferrari sitting in the slipstream of the Mercedes down to 9/10 of a second. So Gamer now deciding this is the time he needs to attack the rear end of Sam, and he needs to get involved in this. And even if they get tangled up, of course it would be Sam that would take the title. So he needs to get a move done cleanly, and I hope that Sam has an incident earlier or later on in the race. Unfortunately, it's all on Sam tonight, as Scott comes in for another pit stop, as the rain now starting to fall heavy. And now this will be interesting. Does Scott move on to the extreme wet tyres? You can see the standing water in pit lane. Scott obviously was the first one onto the intermediates. Is it another set of the intermediates for him, or is it no? It's the blue striped full wet, so it's extreme wet tyres for Scott, going very experimental tonight in the Renault. And you can see the rain starting to come down heavier, and behind him Lipinski comes in, and equally for him it's full wet, and Axiri looks like it's another set of the full wet. So the rain just came down, absolutely, just a torrent of rain came down in that last lap and a half, and you can see the spray coming off of the Renault, and we've moved to full wet conditions, and the guys there out on the intermediates will be feeling the effects of that, as Gamer and Sam most likely will also be coming in to mimic what Scott, Lipinski and Axiri have done. No, they're staying out, so they stay out on the intermediate tyres. Now, what does Nicky do? Nicky also stays out, so as long as they can follow this, there's just a little bit of a racing line at the moment, but it's on these intermediate tyres. You don't want to get involved in that standing water. You can see the puddles forming on the track surface at the moment, but the intermediates, they are the best tyres unless it is absolutely extreme wet conditions. The intermediates are the best tyre to be on. They're a very good intermediary between the sort of raining conditions and extreme rain conditions, as we can see coming down in Sepang now. And we've seen just how much it can catch drivers off guard in the passes. The rain came down in 2002, I believe it was, in Malaysia, and you saw drivers spearing off the circuit, and the race has even been stopped in the late 2000s for a period whilst the rain had to be cleared off of the circuit. And you can see that that racing line that the guys in the intermediates are going to have to follow. But with the rain coming down as it is, I can't see it being that much longer before we see the top 5 all coming in for the extreme wet tyres. Game here, it's just about getting that corner right. You can very easily get turn 13 and 14 wrong, and you can see the spray coming off the cars in front, and it must indicate to these guys that it's turning over to extreme wets. And what happens here? Does Sam stay out once again, or is it another pit stop? No, both of them stay out again, so mimicking each other and making sure that neither one of them gets an advantage. Nicky also staying out. So is this potentially just a very brief shower or very brief heavy storm shower that will pass and will move back to the intermediates, or is it a case of they just don't want to give up track position at this point in the race? They've got the time on the circuit at the moment to go back out and still maintain position. So Sam and Gamewood only drop down to 3rd position at the moment, with Mr. X probably not far behind, but they've got a lot of time to the guys behind us. Foxy comes into the pit lane. Does he get it slowed down? That's a very fast entry, just about gets it slowed down in time in the Red Bull, as Scott is going to make use of the fact that he came in very early for those extreme wet tyres, and he's going to get the move done on Foxy and move up into 5th position. So Scott now starting to make up some time on the guys on the intermediate tyres, and possibly coming in a lap too early onto the intermediates. Did Scott make the perfect strategy choice to come onto the full wets when he did? So we'll go back up and just check in once again with the leaders, as they're still sitting around 1 second away from each other. We'll just go down. I can see a battle forming between James Braden and Foxy Red 2000 behind us. The two, you can see just how much spray, and Christian Horner will be sitting on the pit wall looking at these two Red Bulls, just thinking, guys, just don't touch each other, do not get involved in anything. I want 2 cars. It's the final race of the season. We don't want to be putting the cars back together up in Milton Keynes over the season break. And with these two battling out in these conditions, it can be so easy just to miss your braking point by a fraction of a second and find yourself into the back of the car in front. As James looking very racy up against the rear end of Foxy, and James has got a move done a couple of times on guys in front of him, and he definitely looks like he's got the pace in the wet compared to Foxy, and Foxy going very slowly through turn 12 there. Through, and it's going to be, he just wants to get it slowed down here. Don't want to touch the outside line. So yeah, so James nicely tucked in behind the Red Bull there. He's going to have to put it up into a rich fuel mix, get that overtake button on. Of course, no DRS in the wet conditions, so it's going to all be on fuel mixes. Doesn't quite get the move done into the final turn at turn 15, but pulls the insiders. Boy better know that Scott moves up into 4th place as Mr. X comes in off of the intermediate tyres. But it's another set of the intermediates for Mr. X. So Mr. X going for another set of intermediate tyres, whilst the guys out there on the full wets at the moment. So unless the rain is planning on stopping, it's going to be very interesting for Mr. X. They're making that strategy call to stay on the intermediate tyres. So it has been raining for a couple of laps here, but with just under 10 laps left to go, if the rain stops, and we see that line, that racing line on the circuit, if they can stay in that, I say, as you can start, is now going to start to feel the hot breath of the Red Bulls steaming up behind him, who will have a hell of a lot more grip on those blue walled extreme wets, as we've got a yellow in sector 2. And please don't say that was, it was Lipensky 88. So unfortunately Lipensky has lost it coming into what looks like, that looks like turn 8 potentially, as he comes into turn 9 here. Yeah, so turn 7 and turn 8, Lipinski went wise, back up the front, Gamer the best, and Sam now well involved in a battle for the lead, as Gamer now 0.4 of a second behind Sam going into the final sector of the race, and still on those intermediate tyres, neither one giving any quarter, not allowing the other one a strategy advantage, and Gamer just shadowing the rear end of Sam on this circuit at the moment. Hasn't got the move done. He's yet to lead the race. He's had the opportunity on several occasions, as Mr. X and James Braden battling out for 5th and 6th position at this moment. James gets the move done on the McLaren driver, and it looks like Foxy is also going to get the move done, so Mr. X dropping down from 5th to 7th in 2 corners. As we'll go back up on top and we'll check in with the guys at the top for that. And it's just, oh, you can see Sam struggling to get the power down. Now it's still 0.4 of a second behind in the Ferrari. Just hasn't quite got the pace and the slipstream to get the move done into the final corner. Is it still, are they still going to stay out there on the intermediate tyres? No, it's a pit stop for Sam, but Gamer stays out. So Gamer going 1 lap longer. He's going to look to see, as Sam just about gets it slowed down, locked up the front tyres there into the pit lane. So Sam making that decision to go on to another set of intermediate tyres. So thinking that he can get it done in intermediates, and he's going to have plenty of time to get back out in front of Scott, who's coming down the main straight now. And with Sam, I say that, but Sam maybe under no, he's not, sorry, I thought he was several part of the track, so it's actually Scott coming down the main straight now, so he's still going to have a comfortable lead over Scott. But out there on the intermediate tyres once again, so this will be an interesting call from Gamer. Does he stay out? Surely those intermediates won't last him another 8 laps if Sam had to come in and put another set on. But does he go for the full wets, or does he go? He won't. He may just see that Sam's gone for another set of intermediates, but does he decide to just chance it on the full wets and just run onto the wetter part of the circuit? Maybe if it's offline, but with Sam on the intermediates on what looks to be a full wet circuit, it's very, very interesting for these drivers at the moment on what they go strategy wise. And surely Gamer here, after making that 1 lap where he's managed to try and he's not had to follow Gamer, so yeah, he does look at the overcut, so just try to put 1 hot lap in, and he needs to get it slowed down. This is not where you want to pick up a penalty. Slows down the Ferrari just in time. Good entry for the Ferrari driver there. And what have the Maranello team got ready for him? It's also intermediate tyres there, so green wall tyres ready for the red Ferrari as it leaves the pit lane. And equally Nicky 905 stops for a stop, and he puts on a set of it's a set of, there we go, it's a set of the intermediates. Did flash up blue ever so, no, and he's showing blue, so we'll look to see. It says green on the thing, but on track surface at the moment he's got the extreme wets on, so your guess is as good as mine. I'll guess I can see him wearing the blue tyres, so I'm going to guess that he's in them. But Game of the Best coming out 2.5 seconds behind Sam, so that overcut doesn't work. So Sam makes the undercut work. That 1 lap extra has allowed him to put on the fresh rubber, but you can see the pace already. Gamer taking half a second out of Sam in that lap, so Sam possibly not getting the pace out of the wets as Gamer is. We'll look to see on these new tyres who's quicker on them. We saw Gamer just didn't quite have the pace to match Sam. He could close up to the rear end of the Mercedes, but just didn't quite have the drive to overtake him and any of the corners. So yeah, with seven laps left to go, it's all on Gamer at the moment to close up to the rear end of that Mercedes and get past. And at the moment it might just be a race for pride, because Sam will be taking the championship victory with the win, but also with the 12 points, which will put him well out of sight, with Gamer currently moving on to 80 points for the season, but Sam will be up there on 91 points. So currently Sam is going to take a quite comfortable championship victory. So we'll go back down, we'll just check in with Nicky, who's looking at the rear end of Foxy Red. He's out there on the could be intermediates, could be full wets, looks like it's full wets, but who knows. And he's sitting behind Foxy Red 2000 in the Red Bull in the Force India. Nicky, of course, was running in third position, so he's given up that position to Scott, who made the move onto the extreme wets earlier on, and he's made it work to his advantage, and he's now down to third position and only 7 seconds behind the leaders. And you can see that time just slowly creeping down. So with time left in this race, you can see just how much time already Scott's taken half a second out of the leaders at the moment over this lap. So you can see the circuit getting a little bit brighter, and the rain definitely starting to slow down now. So it's going to be very interesting to see if it goes back into intermediate conditions. But we've still got a lot of standing water on the circuit at the moment. But whilst we still have this standing water, Scott is going to have to really close down these guys, and he is. He's just scything into that lead at the moment. He's taken a second out of the guys on this lap. You can see him running offline onto the wetter part of the surface. He doesn't want to be onto that dark line where it's got more of the rain has been shifted off. He wants to be cooling those tyres down slightly offline. The rain's still coming down quite heavily, but the circuit is brightening up, and as we've got a yellow in sector 3. Oh, it's unfortunate. It's Nicky 9095 who's lost it coming out of the final corner and pointing in the wrong direction as Mr. X goes past in the McLaren. And for Nicky, he's pulled over to the side. Oh, it's unfortunate for Nicky there. You can see how frustrated he is. And Nicky unfortunately retires the car on circuit. And that moves Lipinski up into 7th and Axiri up into 8th position. As Scott still around 6 seconds behind the guys in the lead at the moment. Not quite making the inroads he was making in the previous lap and a half on the guys at the front. You can see that the track may be not as wet as it was a few laps ago, looking like it's possibly going to serve the intermediate tyres a little bit better come the end of this race. You can see it's just not raining as much now, so the guys back down to 6th are all on the extreme wet tyres. So we've seen Scott make some early strategy changes. Does he come in and put on another set of the intermediate tyres? And no, he's going to stay out for another lap on the extreme wets. But back up ahead, it's Gamer the Best and Sam, currently now down to a second between the two. So Gamer once again just moving up to the rear end of the Mercedes, but very slow through turn 2 there, which costs him a couple tenths a second on the leader. But this lead, Sam's just managed to keep Gamer at bay throughout the entirety of this race, and Sam led through the first corner, and Gamer getting the moves done that he needed to get done early on, moved up into second position, both of them stayed out on those intermediate tyres, came in, made the stop, and it was another set of intermediates. They knew that by the looks of it, it was just going to be a quick rain shower, and they looked to brave it through that. And even though the guys behind you can see, you can see that it's starting to move back towards the intermediate. Scott's dropped back to 8.8 seconds. So as Lipinski and Axiri come into the pit lane, and I expect to see those blue logos switch over to green any second now. And as we move back over to intermediate tyres, you can see the brakes in the cloud so Lipinski going green and Axiri going green. So back over to intermediates for the guys, and Scott is going to need to pit if he's going to look at maintaining third position. He's still got a gap to Mr. X, just about a pit stop gap to Mr. X if he comes in this lap. Yeah, you can see just how much time Scott is losing at the moment. It was 8 seconds down on Gamer at the start of the lap. It's now 12.5 seconds. So Scott, and he's staying out, so persevering. And I think Scott might just look at thinking, wait, there's only 3.5 laps left to go. I'm just going to stay out on the full wets and just see what happens. As Game of the Best now 0.7 of a second behind Sam into lap 25 with 3 laps left to go of the F1 2017 season with our F1 Championship in the Equal Performance League. Of course, it's not the only league we've got this week. Tomorrow night we do have F2 and F3, which will be having their last races of the season also at Sepang, Malaysia. So make sure you check out our Twitch, which will be posted on our Twitter at Invictus RL, for all streams ready for tomorrow night, where we will see how the final race of the seasons play out in both the F2 and F3 league. Gamer's still sitting 0.7 of a second behind Sam. Scott now 17 seconds behind these guys. So in one lap he's dropped down, or I'd say 2 laps he's dropped down 12 seconds. So it's showing the pace that you lose on the wrong tyre. As Sam locks up into the final corner, the Gamer closed right up to the rear end of him. Gamer really in the slipstream of the Mercedes now, and with as Foxy Red picks up a 3-second time penalty, so Foxy Red not he's dropped down behind Mr. X there, so potentially Mr. X got the move done, as Scott does decide that he was losing too much time and he's going to come in. As you can see, the sun absolutely scorching off the surface, blinding the driver as he drives down the pit lane. And with James Braden and Scott both in the pit lane, this is going to give Mr. X the opportunity of moving back up into third position, and he does. So Mr. X, who came in and put on another set of the intermediates, made the correct strategy decision there. He decided, like the top 2, to stay out and brave it on the intermediates. And it's Sam, Gamer and Mr. X, the guys that stayed out in the intermediates, that currently lock out the top 3 positions, as Foxy sits in 4th position, still out there on the extreme wets. And with a couple of laps left to go, it will be interesting to see if Foxy just tries to hang it out there and see what happens, or I would expect Scott to cruise up to the rear end of that Red Bull and get the move done pretty sharpishly. As you can see just how much time he's gaining over this lap. It's 1.5 seconds already through, 0.8 of a second through one corner, and Scott is just going to absolutely annihilate. There you go, straight past, see you later. Unfortunately, son, you're on the wrong tyres. This is intermediate city, and the Renault driver just blasting past the Red Bull, and surely that's gonna force Christian Horner's hand, and he's gonna pull his driver in at the end of the lap and tell him, I know there's only 2 laps left to go, but you're just going to lose so much time. And with James Braden and the other Red Bull not far behind, I think Foxy might find himself in the clutches of his teammate pretty soonish, as back up at the top. We've still got a battle for the lead, and it may not be the ending of the season that Game of the Best has wanted, but at least we as viewers are getting a last few lap battle between the two fastest drivers in F1 over the season. They've both shown just how pacey they've been, and Sam looking like he's currently holding Game of the Best at bay. And he's going to hold on to take this victory as long as he just stays consistent over the next lap and a half. Coming down into turn 9, slows it down, doesn't kick the rear end out, which is nice, as James Braden does get the move past Foxy Red. And so James moving up into 5th position. So after that early spin, fortunately for James, he's recovered a couple of positions. So not the worst result for James, as Mr. X taking another, or Mr. X sitting 38 seconds behind these guys, so it just shows just how much pace these two at the front have got. It currently sits at 0.6 of a second, 0.5 of a second as we go into the final lap of the season, the final lap of this game. And Sam has got he's got 5.3 kilometers to keep a charging Ferrari behind him. Just 3.4 miles to keep that Scuderia Ferrari behind. The age-old battle of the hybrid area of the Mercedes versus the Ferrari. And we have 1 lap left, and I believe Sam will be pretty confident that he can keep this up and maintain position, and would see out the title in pretty emphatic fashion, leading his title challenger, having kept him at arm's length pretty much the entirety of the race, and absolutely annihilating the rest of the field with these two just driving off into the distance. As Gamer picks up a 3-second time penalty, so you can just see you're just pushing too hard there, wanted to get the move done. So Gamer, unfortunately, even if he had got the move done, he's now got that 3-second time penalty, so that is effectively game over. So unless Sam has an absolutely catastrophic third sector here and puts that Mercedes into the wall, it looks like the Mercedes driver will take the victory. I say that, but the Ferrari is right up the rear end as they're going down into the final chorus. Sam potentially just... Oh, this game is going to lunge down the inside going into the final corner, and do they touch? They do touch, and they're still... So Gamer's still not giving up, but Sam is going to allow Gamer to sit right behind him when the two go nose to tail across the line, and there is your champion for the season, Gamer the Best. Sam Bam Kid with Game the Best coming in second. He picks up second in the championship. So Sam takes the F1 championship for the last season of the F1 2017 game. Game the Best picks up second in the championship, and then 40 seconds behind we've got Mr. X, who's going to pick up a really good third position there. Well deserved after making a good strategy choice there to stay on the intermediate tyres, as Mr. X picks up third. And Scott, who just did all he could to get back or right to the top of the grid and has made several strategy calls tonight, comes in for corner, really putting on a show for the Malaysian fans here. And James Braden is going to finish off the season in 5th position as if he crosses the line, and he just about. So as we saw with Gamer doing donuts across the line last night, it's James Braden celebrating a 5th position in Malaysia, as Lipinski is going to come across the line in 6th position in the Haas, followed by Xeri in 7th. And Foxy Red is going to follow them in 8th position and will be the last one. And it looks like the two Red Bulls will both be putting on a show, as Foxy doing some donuts for the crowd. putting on a show for the Malaysian fans and putting on a show for you lot watching. Thank you for watching the F1 League over this season. It's been really impressive to see Sam and Gamer battling it out throughout the entirety of the season, and that is your season done, and that is us done for F1 2017. We'll be back for F1 2018, and of course sign-ups are already open. If you go to invictusracingleagues.com and go on our forum site where you can put in your registration for the new game, speak to the admins who will get you sorted ready for the new season and the new game, and we will hopefully make Invictus bigger and better as we head off into the new season ahead of us. And big thanks have to go out to the admins and the guys behind the scenes that run the league. So with Craig behind the scene, or Craig and Malk running the site behind the scenes, with Mike also, but also the admins within the league. So you've got Sam, and is another one who is an admin of the league. So credit goes to them, and congratulations for making it a successful season. It's been tumultuous, it's been fiery, there have been arguments up and down the grid, but it's always strong and competitive racing. And there is your final standings, with Sam picking up the victory to Game of the Best 262, Mr. X in third, Scott in fourth, with James Braden in fifth, Lipensky comes in sixth, Axzeri in seventh, Foxy comes in eighth, and unfortunately we lost Nicky 9095, who was running strongly in third position earlier in the race, but Nicky unfortunately DNFing from the final race of the season. So Sam is your champion for F1 Equal Performance for this season. Game of the Best comes in for the silver medal, so he only picks up the one title this season, picks up the No Assist League, comes in second in F1. So a strong season for Game of the Best, and we need someone to come in and attack these guys for the new game. So if you are watching, you thinking, you know what, I can do that, I can really take it to these guys, feel free, speak to the admins, go onto our website, check out what we've got, and come in and see if you can put your name down to come on and join one of the biggest growing leagues in European Formula 1 esports, and some of the best racing you will find anywhere on Twitch. But for tonight, thank you for joining me watching. If you've been watching the stream or if you've had it on, of course the Performance League was also on tonight, so if you want to go back and watch that one, feel free. There was also another, I'm sure there was absolutely fantastic racing there, but tomorrow night of course we have F2 and F3, which will sign us off from the F1 2017 game. Check us out on Twitter at InvictusRL for all of the information regarding the leagues throughout the off season and the new leagues as they are built into the new game. And if you want to catch me, I will be in F3 tomorrow night driving for the Renault team for the final time. But for tonight, thank you for joining me. It was good to be in the box, and I will see you tomorrow night.